Hello, welcome to the 60th episode of the Chicken Chess Club podcast. Small holiday episode here because there doesn't seem to be that much happening in the chess world. I do know how to make the intro exciting to keep people hooked. My name is Jan Gustafsson. I am back from my travels for a few days, back to the basement in Hamburg, and I'm being joined by Peter Heine Nielsen, who is sitting in front of half a green screen there, and Mr. Dodgy filling in for our dear friend Laurent Fressinet, who's very, very busy in the World Cup. Mr. Dodgy, how is life in the Swedish wilderness?
It's pretty good. It's raining very heavily just now, so yeah, we're not having much of a summer. But Laurent is very busy, so I'm wearing my Paris t-shirt to show support as a replacement for Laurent. He is the informed player at the World Cup. He's been crushing everything recently. So and he plays Abasov today. So after winning his first two games, very comfortably.
What's Abasov's rating? Is Laurent a favorite? I haven't checked his bracket.
He's around 2600, 2607, I think.
Okay.
Laurent is kind of
He's the small favorite
there, and Laurent is the elderly of the two, so the more experienced player. So
sorry, he's 2632, Abasov.
Okay. Right.
What's Laurent? They should be similar, no?
2652.
52? Is that high? I keep being shocked.
Well, he had this ridiculous run recently, right? He won like 20 points in some league.
And also, like, he's not even getting all these points he's winning online. They don't count for feeder ratings, but he's, crushing Magnus, crushing Kramnik. It's in Division 2 the Champions Tour.
We are in the presence of greatness here whenever he has an hour to join us every 4 weeks.
Well, to be fair, he left us, so yeah. Exactly. His performance rating for this year could be above 2,700, or is that too much?
I think so, yeah. I mean, his performance at the French League thing was like 2750 or so. Mm-hmm.
It's the most inspiring improvement at an advanced age story since Rouse's. I'm very, very, happy to see that.
Okay. Yeah, well, I guess.
Should we get next week? Well, I say when he returns next week, but who knows? But when he does return, should we do an adult improver episode where we, ask him for some tips and tricks and what he's been doing to study this?
We should by all means. So the World Cup is the only game in town. Everybody but us is in Baku, where the big guns are entering the action. I think at the time of recording today, in 2-3 hours, Magnus will be in action. Hikaru, Caruana, pretty much everybody, except for, of course, our French number one who has decided to skip it. Everybody else seems to be there. Anything to look forward to in particular? I'm looking at the brackets. I see Carlsen and Keimer are on a collision course. That looks cool.
The world champion is also not there, I should add.
Is he allowed to play? Yeah, Magnus played as world champion, so he
was
allowed to play.
I think, technically speaking, yes.
But, they would never have rules that stop that.
Yeah, Magnus has this bracket where, well, if he wins the first match, he could face Tari, then he could face Keimer, and then he could face Abdusattorov. So
it's a fun bracket.
It's a fun bracket, but another fun bracket is just to mention a random person, Anish Giri. He could, if he wins this match, I think he could face Fressinet, then Jordan van Forest, and then Dubov. So basically, Team Carlsen would have 3 shots at him there. Yeah. So, and well, none of us. So we're actually taking it seriously, I would say.
And then he plays Carlsen in the final, or
no? Carlsen would be semi-final, I think. No, if Giri gets to play Magnus, he's already qualified for the candidates, you could say. So, I mean, that's also, well, World Cup is a bit of a strange tournament because I think for by far most players, they're not there to win. They're there to qualify for the candidates, which means getting in top 3. Or if someone who already qualifies is part of top 4, then getting into top 4 is enough to qualify for the candidates. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, but I don't think so, right? That's what people care about.
In the end, but it's also, it's a moneymaker for like we talked about, the sort of second class that don't usually play in the super tournaments. And for the top guys, it's also just the only tournament in town. Of course, they want to make it to the candidates, but there's also money and glory at stake. It's just, I think, a tournament. People
No,
tend to
no.
enjoy because if you get kicked out, you can go home, and if you keep going, yeah, then at least it's worth your time.
Oh, of course. I mean, I meant, let's say, the top 10, 15 players, the lower players, I guess, as you say. I mean, well, I once thought my tournament was a great success because I qualified for the last 16. It was good for me, but of course, in a sporting sense, compared to others, it's not that much. And you're right, for quite some, it's a potential money maker. I haven't checked the prices, but normally, if you get some rounds through, it starts becoming rather attractive for an, so let's say, non-top tier player, right?
I don't know the price either. It used to be, I think, you get 5,000 for showing up, but you have to pay all your own expenses. Then 10 for making the second round, 20 for the third. But don't quote me on it. Like, I'm sure
No, I
people
think it's a bit
actually looked
lower
at.
than that. I
I
think
think it's lower than that, to be
they
honest.
start at 3,000. But
But
also,
that's the first, the extra round or not?
yeah, that's true. But yeah, I was on the Perpetual Chess podcast last week where we did a
Congratulations.
World Cup. Thank you. It was a big moment for me. And we did a World Cup preview. And one of the things I brought up, and Ben was too polite to argue with me, but I assume you guys won't be, is that I think there are just too many candidate spots in this tournament. And I think there was too many before. I don't think there ever should have been two because it makes the final an anti-climax. But I think there's three too many. I think there should be no candidate spots, and this should be the World Cup. This should be the Knockout World Championship.
I'm not saying it's a bad strategy, but basically your hot takes are just based on my old tweets. So how does it work? I'm sure I've
Maybe.
tweeted.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I haven't read all your old tweets.
No, I hope not. But well, well, you have to qualify for the candidates somehow. But of course, well, 3 spots eats up a lot of the spots, and with this one, you are literally just one mistake from being out to a certain extent. I I feel it's a more random event than others, but maybe that's a cool way for the qualifying for the candidates. But at least, well, the general consensus at some point was that this was quite a more random way to sort of define who the best players is than others. But I don't know. Maybe Jan should also be allowed to say something.
I don't have very strong opinions. I do agree if we're trying to get the strongest candidates field possible, which I guess is sort of the intention, then 3 spots from the World Cup format is a bit much. I mean, they might get lucky in a sporting sense if that's what we want and get some of the strongest players, but historically, yeah, no shots intended at these great players. But yeah, we've had Khalifman, Kazimchanov, Ponomayov, and so on, winning these events, who weren't considered to be the strongest players in the field, which is also, yeah, it's sports. You need to find a winner, and it's a fair system. But of course, when it comes to classical strength, it doesn't always produce the strongest players coming through. I don't know. I haven't thought about it too much. Is also, yeah, I guess the usual practical options where to give the spots, but 3 sounds a lot. I could compromise on one if you want to have the finals exciting, or 2, and then depends. I don't know. I just want to see the strongest players, so I wouldn't be against let's say 2 rating spots in the candidates either. But I'm sure everything has its pros and cons, and also a lot depends on if a certain Magnus Carlsen chooses to play or not, and so on and so forth. So I guess it's an arbitrary discussion, and the system they have now, to my mind, is still somewhat better than, I can't even recall how it was in the old days, but at least that people know how they can qualify for the candidates and prepare and adjust accordingly.
Yeah, but is this more random than the World Rapid and Blitz Championships? Is it more random than just a single tournament? Like, because I think that's really where the randomness comes from. I don't think the knockout format is necessarily more random than anything else. I think it's just the randomness that any one tournament can be won by someone who's not the top seed.
I thought that it was statistically. I mean, I recall back in Kasparov days. I mean, some were arguing that based on math, Kasparov would have like 30-40% chance of winning a knockout world championship like this. And I think I have seen similar figures for Magnus. I guess in World Rapid and Blitz, we normally park Magnus in the around 50% category. So at least by that we would say yes, this one is more random in a way. But well, I'd also like to defend it. I mean, of all people, it's actually Magnus who has been arguing for that. Well, this should be the world championship. I think he was offering at some point that, well, you can take my title and use it for this, but there was just no one, neither feeding nor players, who was supporting that idea. I think we are. I don't know how many years we have to go back, but quite a lot. But he was actually to some extent pushing for it at some point, or at least
No,
suggesting.
I don't agree with that. I don't think it should be a replacement for the Classical World Championship, but I think it should just be the World Knockout Championship. Like I think this is much harder to win than the World Rapid and Blitz, and
No doubt, it's the hardest to.
those guys get to call themselves world champion, but whoever wins this doesn't, which I think is strange because this is a serious event. Like of all the events that FIDE runs, this is probably the most marketable to a non-chess audience because it's a straight knockout system and it's pretty exciting. The prize money is good. In general, the organization is as good as FIDE gets for stuff, I would say. So yeah, it should be. I think this should just be the Knockout World Championship.
I don't know. I don't need too many different world championship titles, but
Sorry, what are you doing at the end of August?
Sorry?
What is it you're doing at the end of August?
The FIDE World Rapid Team Open Championship with an amateur board.
Okay, yeah. Just checking.
Yeah. No, it wasn't me who invented that tournament. No, it's a bit strange. I agree. It's a fun event to watch and also very understandable for the public. It's like Wimbledon or any massive tennis tournament. But in a way, it's a strange hybrid as well. In Wimbledon, usually, or I'm big tennis expert, as you will be able to tell, but usually the best players come through. They have a much bigger chance. But in chess, it's a bit like, I don't know, like you played 2 points, no? And then we decide who wins. While a bunch of tennis sets, the bigger player will have much better chances. You could argue the moves are the individual points and not the games. But the tournament is not forgiving you for a week 2-game stretch, while the World Rapid will. And I'm sure whenever Magnus won the World Rapid, there will be 2 games in a row where he scored half out of 2. But here, this could knock him out of the tournament. So it's, in a way, it feels more random, which, yeah, you could argue it's good or bad because it produces more surprises. I don't know. I like to watch it, especially once we get to the final, even 32, I guess, final 32, final 16, final 8. It's always a bunch of fun matches to watch. So it's a great format to follow.
Well, I probably agree somewhat with both. I think, well, we have this theme quite often that, well, the perception of the event matters a lot. If I think it would be a very interesting, tournament as a world championship if the players treated it like that. I mean, remember World Rapid and Blitz? At some point, it was, well, everybody would say it's just Rapid and Blitz and not care. But when they really started caring, it became a very marketable event. And I think it's the same with here. The knockout, but in general, I mean, knockout back in the days, let's say Kasparov was making fun of it, so was Nigel Short, and so on and so forth. He was basically got this image of being random and not fully just. And well, that could be true, but when you start knocking it like that, like we used to do with Rapid and Blitz, well, of course, you also devalue it in a way. Maybe it makes sense to devalue it because then, well, you sort of appreciate the classical world championship that you have more, and there's maybe a limit to how many world championships as we do have. But well, I think it's an interesting event as it is. As Jan said, for players our level, it's a good way to make some money, to make a breakthrough for the best, let's say, the second tier players in the world. It's a good way to qualify for the candidates. They care tremendously about that. And of course, for Magnus playing, well, Magnus is Magnus. His motives, well, I've given up deciphering, right? I mean, it's just cool that he plays to some extent, right? So it kind of works the way it is. But I don't know. I'm just blabbering to some extent. But it's a very popular event, I think, and it kind of works.
All right. That's the World Cup. The big guns entering the action today. And yeah, we have to figure out whom to root for. Like, obviously, we're not rooting. no, obviously we are rooting for Laurent. But other than that, Peter, any friends of yours in the running there?
Well, for a start, I would point out that I'm actually rooting for Laurent, which is maybe not the first time in my life, but I'm generally honestly rooting for Laurent. I actually hope he does well. I would start being annoyed if he did incredibly well, but no, I mean it's fun and enjoyable. Well, of course, there is Jonas Bjerre, a Danish player that, at least to my knowledge, doesn't actively dislike me, and I speak nicely with. So I've been rooting for him. He won the first round against a much lower rated player, and today he's facing Gusainov. So that's going to be interesting. And then, of course. Well, like most people, I care about my job and financial interests, so I also root for Magnus to do quite well, I would say. And, well, I mean, yesterday I sent him a text message saying that I'm going to the cinema and will be offline for a while, but I will work later. So not that serious, but somewhat serious, I take it.
Yeah, and also I think he was playing Title Tuesday at
Yeah, I think
something
we're
like
good
3 a.m.
fit like that.
local
So
time.
maybe,
So
yeah, fair enough.
yeah, I mean, I think the good thing is that the better Laurent does, the more we can root against him because he's doing well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he doesn't care. He's happy. So if he's in the semifinals and we're rooting against him, he'll be quite happy with that.
Yeah,
But
I
I'm
mean,
supporting.
no, it's also interesting that he's actually. I mean, well, at some point he started. I think some years ago he started playing much worse, and he's made a tremendous recovery. And I'm a little bit puzzled why, because I don't think there is a massive amount of hard work behind it. But maybe I'm wrong.
His reach is amazing. He's gone, but we still keep talking
Yeah,
about
that's
him
that,
non-stop.
yeah.
But
No,
there's also
also
Peter Swidler as well, who's playing.
yeah.
Has
Yeah,
some
let's root for Peter.
record. He's done reasonably well in these in the past.
Hmm. Well, he got in on a wild card. I think I spoke with him in Dubai recently, and it was not my impression he was planning on playing the event. So I mean, he's just dumped in at the last moment, or he was bluffing towards me, but could be.
No,
But
I would say he definitely got dumped in at the last moment.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think mainly, I mean, well, he has so much talent and class that I'm talking about Svitler, not Laurent now, that he can basically play without any kind of practice and do it very well. I mean, the Sigeman performance was very impressive, right? He actually managed to end ahead of all the young kids, despite well, just going there and showing up was my impression, right? Again, I expect that Svitler is not training regularly for performing well in chess.
It's completely untrue. I went there for 2 days. Both the days I was there, Peter won his games. I helped him prepare for them. And then after that, he just ghosted, just drew every game. So, no, we worked very hard together.
Okay, well, my apologies, but yeah.
No, obviously he has class, as can be seen by his past. He's always been somewhat puzzling to me, but I guess that applies to for guys like us who mainly do clicking on openings and find it harder to see the class and other levels, because Peter was never an obsessed opening clicker. He's just good at the game. Father Time is undefeated. His rating went down a bit as well. He's below 2,700, which of course for Svidler levels who I guess we're used to see at least around 2,730, 40 feels low, but okay. Life is not so easy. We're rooting for him, of course, here, and he very much has a chance to do well. He's also in the bracket of Laurent and Giri, no? Like
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
in that bracket. Interesting.
So
So,
what?
who do we think? Do we think any of the kids are going to break through this tournament and get a candidate spot?
I had Abdu Satorov in my top 3 last time we talked now, so of course I'm still Team Nodebek.
I also predicted Nodebek to do well until I realized he played Magnus quite early, and now I'm less optimistic.
Yeah, that's of course a bit of a problem.
Yeah, I
He's
mean,
also facing Wei Yi before that, who hasn't been so active recently, but whenever he's been playing, Wei Yi has been pretty impressive, so it could be a big match in the Sweet 16, whenever it is, up to Satorov Wei Yi, if they both make it there.
that also means you think, for instance, where you will he would face Ivanchuk before that. You think Ivanchuk, well, being 54 is there is a limit to when you. I mean, Svitler and Laurent is in their 40s, right? So
I just believe in ratings, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, he's higher rated. He's the favorite. Of course,
Mhm.
827, whatever he is. 40 can lose a match to 2650, but he is the favorite.
This well, when you talk about it, it feels like a strong bracket with Kamo, Wei Yi, and up to Satorov. Is that sort of is that true, or is it just are all the brackets like that in a way?
I think
I guess if we
Gukesh
go
maybe
back to
has a
the rating point, all the brackets are
Yes.
similar. No, like, I mean, it's just maybe people we know better. If they're older players, they might be more famous than some of the others. But I would guess they balance it rating wise. No, would be strange if they
Mhm.
didn't.
No, for instance, we were speaking about this Geary bracket, but I think, for instance, well, Dubov and Grishuk is also on collision course with the Geary bracket we mentioned before in round 5, right? I think so.
Pretty much everybody's on collision course in round 5.
Yeah, that's
Like,
how the tournament works. That's kind
yes,
of the
at least in
idea.
the finals, there's
Yeah,
going to be a collision.
fair enough. But also,
yeah. I mean,
well,
I think Gukesh maybe has a slightly easier route than Noderbek, for example.
mhm.
I think Noderbek, like Gukesh, will probably play Mamajarov in the round where Noderbek plays Magnus. So, like that's not that Mamajarov is going to be easy, but I guess you would rather play him than play Magnus.
I would assume so. Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, when you're a bit lower rated, it becomes like this. There might be I mean, well, yeah, you could face number 1 randomly or number 8. It becomes a minor difference in your rating where you end up like that. I mean, well, I had the honor of playing Vichy in round 2 at some point, and well, the difference between number 1 and number 8 can be rather massive in terms of rating. Right, it was also an interesting experience, and I don't know if up to Sasorov is probably up to Satorov is so ambitious he would like to qualify for the candidates, so probably he thinks Magnus is a annoying obstacle, right? Probably he feels a bit
I don't think
shortchanged.
anybody is very happy to have Magnus
No,
early in their
no,
path. Like, it's still in chess, even with Magnus'
yeah.
recent
Hmm.
lack of successes for his standards in classical. I still think there's the Magnus bracket and then
Hmm.
the everybody else bracket. So it's clearly bad news
I
if
agree.
he's in your half. Like,
Yeah, but also he is never. I think it was kind of striking that the top 4 seeds have never got to the final. Or it might be more than top 4, but Magnus, Fabi, Nepo, and Hikaru have never got to the final.
Well, it's kind of hard.
And you would kind of pick
Yeah.
all of them, maybe less so Fabi, that with like Rapid and Blitz, although I know he's won important matches before. But you would always kind of, I guess, all 4 of them you would pick as like good at this format because they, if you can't beat them in classical, if they can't win in classical, they're going to be the favorite against most people in Rapid or in Blitz, and yeah, it doesn't seem to really work out like that.
But for instance, do we think Nakamura would be a beast in playoffs here? But sometimes there is a difference between playing 30 games or just playing 2 games with the playoff at stake. I don't know, and also, well, nerves start becoming a huge factor compared to online chess where you have so many games. I don't know. I assume Nakamura will be extremely good in playoffs, but
Do you think they'll let him do interviews to his stream in between tiebreak games? Because if they do that, then I think he'll win.
yeah.
yeah, I don't think we have a lot of indicators that Nakamura would be bad in this format the way he's been great in all the other formats recently. Also, I guess attendance matters. I'm not sure how many World Cups Nakamura, Caruana, even Magnus have played together, so maybe they also missed quite a few.
I thought
Yeah, it also
Caruana and
speaks to
Nepo
the
usually.
randomness of the format.
Yeah, I thought Hikaru maybe skipped some, but I thought Caruana and Nepo usually play at least. Magnus in recent years, I think, hasn't really skipped one.
But let's say of these 4s, what do you think is most likely? That one of them make the semifinals or 2 of them make the semifinals? I would probably go for one, but I'm not
Would you
sure.
pick these 4 against the field?
Are they all in the
Yeah.
same bracket? That also matters for. I guess.
No,
Can't
No,
meet
I
before
mean,
the
the,
semifinals.
that's the top 4 seeds. So
the top
they should
4 will be in different
start
brackets.
off.
That's kind of the system.
That makes sense.
Well, maybe you're joking, but I don't
Nah,
know.
just
But
will you pick them against the field?
I would, because
Probably
it
no.
includes.
Like if we say Magnus is whatever 30%,
Yeah.
I'm not giving less than 20% to whoever was Hikaru, Fabi, and who was the fourth?
Nepo.
And Nepo. Yeah. Nah, it sounds like you take them against the field, but I'm not sure by how much.
No, that I would do because it includes Magnus. But for two of them
Yeah,
to
exactly.
qualify for semifinals, I'm I don't know if I would pick that. I wouldn't actually. I mean, also,
I would take the field.
yeah, exactly. If Magnus wins, I mean, well, if he doesn't win, he could very likely go out before the semifinals, right? I mean, if he gets to the semifinals, he starts becoming a pretty big favorite normally. And,
So the further he gets, the better for him.
yeah, it's like being +2 is better than +1.
Especially in these matches.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Getting a lot of insights on this show.
All right, World Cup. It's about to get exciting. Not really exciting yet, but we still managed to talk about it for half an hour. We'll revisit it. It's gonna last for the whole month, so should be a lot of
Yeah.
action.
I did.
Another exciting.
I just remembered before we go on that we were talking about Hikaru and Magnus, and there was a New in Chess interview with Hikaru where he revealed that they might be planning a match between the two of them this year, which I thought was quite interesting. I thought it was an interesting place to leak this match because I'd heard about it before and I'd heard rumors and I expected it to be quite a big thing. But it does sound like they're going to play some serious kind of match for big money, which sounds cool.
Yeah, sounds good. And what's not to like? I guess money and attention will be guaranteed. So why wouldn't they?
I mean, you are almost missing the most exciting part. They will play Chess 960. I think Hikaru mentioned some of the games, right?
Oh, that's much less exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, but probably still people will watch at least the other games.
Yeah. No, I thought no. I don't know how. I mean, should it happen? How will it pan out in a way? Right? Will it be? Well, again, this thing with perception. Will people think it's amazing, interesting match between the two best players in the world? Or would they say, this is not a world championship match. We don't really care. I mean, compared to a world championship match, what are we talking about in terms of interest?
Clicks will be pretty good now, and also the average chess fan out there on Twitch or YouTube, I'm not sure how much they grew up with watching the classical World Championship matches, how much it matters if it's not just two of the guys with the biggest reach out there and the world number one and number two playing each other. I'm sure they will do well to market it. Like, why wouldn't it be huge?
Yeah. Do we think Magnus is still a huge favorite?
Depends on the format. How much classical chess are they playing, for example?
It seemed to be that they were talking like flat, fast classical or slow rapid, so kind of 45 minutes or 60 minutes, somewhere around that region.
Also, I'm not sure who's favored by the classical chess. I was just curious. Not like Magnus has been crushing the world, and Hikaru did win Norway chess there. Hard to say. Hikaru's just been so great in all the formats recently. Magnus has been praising him. He doesn't seem scared by Magnus when they played each other. I mean, I'm so conditioned to Magnus being way above the rest that somehow it doesn't really enter my head. He might not be, but that's why I guess
I agree.
the match.
I agree. But like 1 year ago, I picked Magnus 100%, like no question. But the recent matches, Hikaru beat him in Speed Chess Championship, then he won Norway Chess, then he beat him in the Bullet Championship as well.
Yeah,
these things they add up as well over time.
Chess don't lie, and also it changes the psychology a bit. So I have no clue. Like, I'm still not betting against Magnus in any format other than maybe 1-0 Bullet. It seems like we have now established, and Magnus has said that much, that Hikaru is just better. Here I would still take Magnus, but very curious.
Okay, it's part of my job to start the trash talk, but I think Magnus is a clear favorite, no doubt. I mean, that's how it is. I mean, of course, we can go back to the jokes that Magnus is the favorite, but his opponent has a chance from the last World Championship. But to ask you, well, you think Hikaru has a much better chance than, for instance, the opponent she had in the match? That's from what I take from you. You'll say yes.
100%. Yeah, like I mean, I still I'm not totally unobjective. Like, I think Magnus is still the favorite, but I think, like, I don't think Hikaru is intimidated by Magnus at all anymore, and I think probably he was. Like, if you lose 13-1 to a guy in classical chess, you're probably, if you're not a little bit intimidated, then you maybe don't have the right attitude. But I think at this point, he doesn't seem that concerned about Magnus, and he knows he can beat him. So, it's slower games, and I think the slower games still lean more towards Magnus. I think Hikaru is just freakish in fast chess. But yeah, I think this will be much closer than against Nepo, and I think there's a chance that Hikaru could win. Whereas I didn't really see Nepo beating Magnus in a match.
How serious do you think they will take it? I mean, World Championship level, or they will just show up? Or
I think they take it serious for how they take things serious, but probably doesn't mean what we would think it means month of preparation of random openings. No, I guess. Especially when they play each other, they feel a bit more opening independent. They won't try to get 0-30 or zeros or whatever. Could be the goal. They'll just play some stuff, but for their standards, they'll take it very serious. No,
also, as I remember, the match was sort of mentioned for end of the year, or how was it, Mr. Dodgy?
I don't know. I didn't
but I
see when
or
it
maybe
was.
it was
I thought it was
year.
going to happen this year, but yeah, I'm not totally sure. I think towards the end of the year, maybe. But then there are clashes in with Sinkfield Cup, and then it's like
No,
the championship.
I was about
in
to say
December.
that compared to World Championship prep, one is already late. But of course, Ding set completely new standards there, so maybe both players will just do it Ding style and gather
Where's
at
Ding
peak.
at, by the way? What's Ding doing? Is he still, I don't know, sitting on an island somewhere with a mojito, enjoying his title? What's he up to?
I thought you were hanging out with him in Thailand. I thought that's.
Yeah.
I was reaching out, but just like before the match, he's just ignoring me.
Would you tell us if you were actually hanging out with him?
For sure, that'd be all over my Instagram.
But you are basically saying there is zero chance that Ding is just enjoying celebrity life, hanging out at the beaches, being cool, world champion.
I'd like that to be the case. I don't know Ding that well. I can't quite picture it, but I would think it would be cool.
Yeah. When do we get to start making fun of him? Like we make fun of Alireza for never playing chess? Like, how long do we give Ding to recover?
He has a while. He played the match, and he also played the Grand Chess Tour right after. Nah, he gets a couple months off if he wants them.
Yeah, he's had like 3 now. When does he play again?
That's still fine.
Do you think he'll play this year?
Also, in his defense, he never played before the match either, so it's not like it changed.
Is there any percent probability that he will just do like Fischer and never play again?
He talked about retiring had he lost the match, but then after winning, he said now he'll stick around for a couple of years. No, he even had some numbers in there, if I recall correctly, like 3-4 years. But I don't know. I don't know what Ding is up to. He's a fascinating character, but I don't think we know him well enough, frankly.
No,
I guess it's a different thing. Like in terms of motivation, like Magnus became world champion pretty young, and so did Kasparov. And when you're young, you are just naturally more motivated. But Ding's already 30. Like, is he super motivated to establish some kind of chess dynasty and become the greatest of all time over the next 10 years? Like, probably not.
He did mention somewhere he wants to be the best chess player in the world, not quote unquote just world champion. But yeah, I don't know. Also, he's been hanging out a lot with Richard Rapport, and whenever I was talking to Richard Rapport, he says, "Yeah, chess is terrible. I need a nice half-year break right after this Bundesliga match or whatever." And maybe he convinced Ding that's the way.
Yeah, maybe
we don't know.
He was motivating himself like this. If I win this match, okay, I get a year off or something like this. And that kept him going and working hard. I don't know. But no, it's... Well, I think we have some ideas of what Ding's character is, but we have no knowledge. Right? Everyone else in top 10, I guess we feel much better what goes on in their mind, right?
Yeah, I guess you could chalk it up to some extent language barrier, although he does speak decent English, but I guess people, or us at least, have just talked to him.
No,
Less than others.
I'm very friendly with him. I even spent a camp with him, Magnus, and Laurent, excellent company. And no, we were very friendly and talked, but I don't call any kind of personal emotions or something like this. I mean, I think probably language barrier is some kind of hindrance there, right? It's easy to talk about chess, but somehow to start asking how do you feel, or how's life going, and stuff like this, I don't have any recollection of.
Yeah, I
I
don't
think
know. I didn't
when
spend much time with him. I think this perception that he doesn't have emotions, it's hard to uphold. He's shown us plenty, even during the World Championship match, but also before, during games. You can see there's emotions depending on how he's doing, and he had all this talk about being depressed, and you could see his mood changing during the match. But yeah, I just don't have a good read on him because
no,
I don't know him very well. Just seems like a friendly, slightly introvert, humble guy who now the rest of the random world will say you're chess world champion, do cool stuff. Well, maybe he just wants to keep being himself, which is fairly legit.
also, I mean, world champions tend to try and monetize it. Well, of course, they get a huge prize for winning it, but I mean, it's not like we think Dink chess is going to be the new Magnus chess or something like that, right? I mean, it just
Also,
doesn't strike me as the way he does things. But what do I know?
yeah, also from, I'm assuming he's more or less set for life. It's also a
Yeah,
debate, or not that much a debate, but I think they changed it recently how much of their prize money and appearance fees and so on Chinese players get to keep. But I think that has changed recently in favor of the players. And I also heard, yeah, that Ding even before the match said he was fine. So it's not about the money. I'm not sure what
no.
motivates him. I think he just likes chess and likes to do well, which is fair enough.
Hmm.
We'll see what
Yeah.
comes down the stretch. We don't know, basically. Sorry, Ding. We're still fans.
Yeah.
What
Is
other?
he?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. I mean, he's still in the Grand Chess Tour, right? So he should, in theory, appear in Singerfield Cup, or
I would think so.
Yeah,
I
I
think
believe so.
everybody plays both of the
yeah.
classical ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's still part of it, so he should be playing that. But I think that's actually the next event, and that's not until the end of November this year.
Well, yeah.
It's later than usual.
Hmm.
So I guess maybe he could play the Grand Swiss, but it doesn't seem. I mean, you
So
There
never
why
was
will
know.
he
some
not?
there was some list of participant published, right? But I don't know if it's a
Oh
final
no,
one or
yeah, I
just.
guess he wasn't on it then. Yeah,
Yeah.
people would have said.
Hmm.
Also, Grand Swiss, a giant open. There, really, the main point seems to be trying to get into the candidates. No, I mean that would be a strange choice for him to play.
Hmm.
Magnus has played before though, right? So it's
Yeah, but he's Magnus. He does random things.
I think that would be strange for Ding. Also, well, again, we don't know him, but I would assume with his new status, he will be a bit more scared in the sense of, well, thinking, okay, should I go and play an open tournament and end up number 20? It will just devalue my title.
yeah, that's fair.
Playing Singerfield Cup, I can see, but well, I would assume he will start feeling the pressure that all world champions has done, and he will start. Well, you can only go backwards from here. Now suddenly I'm the world champion. Whenever I end up in the middle of the field, it will be looked at and moderately mocked. No, it must be a difficult. I mean, of course, it's a very pleasant situation overall for him, but of course it must be difficult in some sense. I think. Well, at some point, Vichy, when he became world champion, I think he told me that of course it's something we all want, but I mean, don't get it wrong. It also, well, it's also complicated in some way. I mean, there's absolutely no need to feel pity for world champions. It's something very nice, but that it doesn't come with complications is probably one should remember. I think.
Yeah, it's all about the journey, not the destination.
Stay in Goa or wherever you are for a while, Ding. It's fine. We'll
Yeah,
keep talking nonsense.
yeah.
You
We're
enjoy life.
well, to be honest, you're just jealous, right? I mean,
For sure.
yeah, yeah. No,
Who wouldn't be?
yeah.
What else is on our exciting list? Not much. I've been trying to master Connect 4. I think that's the most important topic in my life. It's a difficult game where you have to get 4 in a row, diagonally, horizontally, or vertically. White to move, or I guess it's red to move, wins with perfect play. But a lot of options, a lot of options. So I'm not great yet, but I'll get there. I'll get there. I've studied theory. The best move is to put your first stone in the middle. Not very surprisingly, but after that, it becomes quite complicated. So,
I thought that, I mean, is it that complicated? From what I read, is that, well, you really have to understand the concept of odd even threads and you have to create zugzwangs, and then it was not that difficult. But you're saying that it is still a very complicated game. You don't think there's any humans who can play it easily, perfectly, for instance?
no, I think it's doable, but not in a couple hours like I've been.
Hmm.
I've been trying to. I'm not sure what's a realistic goal if you could become perfect in a month. Let's say I would guess probably yes. I can't do math, so there's probably a bunch of options, and often it's the logical move. Like I've been practicing with this Connect Four solver, but quite often to me the move also doesn't make a lot of sense at first sight. That's the only winning move, so it's a tricky game. But yeah, that's how I spent my time.
I'm gonna admit to cheating online here, but in my, well, youth is a bit strong because I'm saying I was playing Magnus, but at some point I was playing Connect for online with Magnus, and I downloaded this solver, and I did exactly what you were talking about. That I played a move that I could see was winning according to table basis, but looked the most stupid. And there was a lot of stupid moves that was actually winning. At least they look stupid to
Yeah.
me in a way. So it's not that simple
No, more
optically.
often than not, you're not working directly to building your three in a
Hmm.
row or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's some forward thinking involved. But yeah,
I
I will keep you posted, and
I
I will
think at
try.
some point I was speaking with some of these, well, guys from Alpha Zero, and I was suggesting, to all, well, what happens if you build a neural network for a game like Connect Four that is actually solvable in a tactical way? Can you get them to on? I mean, Alpha Zero is sort of more positional and based on ideas, but if it's such a tactical game, will it be able to play it perfectly? I think they moved on to more,
But isn't that incredibly trivial? Like I'm an idiot, but
maybe.
I would assume that yeah, with trial and error, any whatever neural network can
I
figure out Connect Four instantly. No, can't you just calculate it? Like I mean,
it is still there's still quite a lot of possibilities, but I would assume so. Maybe a game like checkers would be a better way to test because that's also solved, but of course the numbers are quite bigger in a way. But you're saying, yeah, but I thought that Alpha Zero was learning things still based on some kind of general principles, and if they don't really exist, but it's just calculation, I don't know how they managed to master it in a way.
Uh,
But
that sounds very trivial
I would
compared
assume
to the
so. Yeah, yeah.
computing power you would need. I would think any half-capable programmer can build something that plays Connect
Mhm.
4
No, no.
perfectly
Somebody
instantly.
has tried to build neural networks doing it, but the 2 minutes I researched before this episode, I didn't manage to get a conclusive answer to that. But no,
I've just understood how Jan feels during the FIDE segment. It's,
it's very interesting,
it's
right?
rough.
No, okay, no. I think games are interesting, but also, well, Jan mentioned that of course putting it in the center is correct, but that's also my chess understanding. But when I started playing shogi and I started getting interested in Go, these games center doesn't matter at all, basically, or not to the extent we think. So, I mean, we have also built up this idea that center should matter because it's logical in chess. It might not actually be the case, but maybe now Mr. Dodgy thinks it gets too weird, or that's long. That ship sailed long ago.
No, I think Shogi and Go are a bit more interesting than
Okay,
Connect
fair
4.
enough.
Yeah,
Well,
Connect
connect.
4 would be weird if the center didn't matter, no? Because you can
I
build
agree.
more rows from the center than you can build from the edge of the board. But
Hmm.
yeah, very often it's not the central move that wins. Anyway,
Yeah. No, fair enough. Okay, I'll say this. There is
moving
a,
on.
yeah, fair
What
enough.
else can we talk about? What are they doing about rating deflation? Everybody gets free rating points, but not us, basically. So we would have to play to profit, but then our lack of strength would show. I didn't really understand the system. Dodgy explained it earlier, but I didn't really listen.
Yep, that makes sense. So they're adding rating points. So the first thing they're doing is the current floor for FIDE ratings is 1,000, and they're raising that to 1,400. So basically, everyone with a FIDE rating below 1,400 gets raised to 1,400 or slightly higher. and then everyone between that range and 2000 gets up to 400 rating points. The higher they are, the less points they get.
So if your rating is 1010 right now, you're 1400 next list?
I think it'll be 1410.
Wow.
But yes.
That's
And
a
then
big
if your
jump.
rating is 1600, you get 160 points. If you're higher, you get less. If you're lower, you get more.
So Magnus will be 3 to 40 or whatever it is.
No, because he is over
Ah,
2000.
okay.
Unfortunately for him.
That's how it works.
Adding 400 to
I
everybody
thought
would
I
not.
was going to become a 3000 player finally.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how these things work out in a maths way. But it feels like, there should be some trickle up effect that makes up for this, and then, everyone that plays
But
chess will
someone
get.
smart thought about this, no? Because the way the
Like,
system was, everybody was losing ratings slowly, which can't have been perfect.
let
But
me
was everyone
actually
losing ratings?
praise
I was.
FIDE. I mean, for a rare thing, they actually brought in Jeff Sonas for this, so that they deserve praise for. He's sort of a
Wow,
huge,
clip it.
huge yeah. He's a huge rating expert, and well, he was the one doing historical ratings that, for instance, me and Jan was using in our wildly successful video series on the top 50 in the world and historically and such. He's generally a very
That was the title. Top 50 in the world historically and such. It was
yeah. That's well, if I would to pronounce it, it would have been, but yeah. But no, he's good. Um, Generally, I think people underestimate how good the Elo system actually is, and that compared to other sports, we have a very stable and good rating, in my opinion. But of course, these things had to be addressed. I think the main sort of trigger is young Indian players, right? Or am I getting it wrong?
I think
I
that's a
do
big
not
part of
know.
it. I think there was a recent tournament where, let me just check what the name was of this girl. Nope, I closed the tab. But there was an Indian girl rated, somewhere around the region of 2000, and she had a 2600 performance. She was the lowest rated player in an open, and she came second.
I can
So
give an example from Danish chess that for quite some years, probably still the case, it was very obvious that all our juniors players would lose a bunch of rating, and I really mean a bunch, when they played World Youth events, while our senior players would win a bunch. And my feeling is
why
that
were your senior players playing World Youth events?
no, they would play
That
win.
makes sense that they were just beating up kids.
Yeah, they would play World
I
Senior
would think
events,
they would
and
lose
then
rating. They would.
they would win a lot. And my best guess is that, well, Danish ratings is quite sort of upgraded. So the kids have enough tournaments to play, and so do the seniors. So the Danish kids has already won the rating that other countries' junior players has not. So when they get to this youth event, they will get slaughtered, and vice versa. When Danish seniors will also have their ratings corrected down, which other countries have not, and then they will win a lot like this. At least that's my theory. But I mean, well, when sort of Indian players comes, they have only played Indian events with where the rated is deflated. I mean, they come and they slaughter and take everybody's rating points, and of course that becomes very unpopular, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, my feeling is I would also do better against German and Swiss retirees in some resort paying to play the World Senior Championship than against 11-year-old Indian, Chinese, Indonesian, wherever they're from, talents. But yeah, it could make sense that the Western ratings are more whatever established because there used to be more rated tournaments. I'm not sure how much that holds up nowadays. I'm sure there's a ton of tournaments going on in India and wherever else as well. But yeah, your theory, yeah, sounds logical
It,
to me.
it does seem to be a strange quirk that they're playing some FIDE rated games because then they have a rating. But because if they were coming to Europe and without a rating, then they would just start off with a very high but probably accurate rating. But they seem to be playing like maybe one or two tournaments at a young age, and then they play a bunch of. I mean, I assume what's happening is they're playing a bunch of tournaments in India that are, nationally rated but not FIDE rated. So they're getting the experience of playing classical games because I don't think it's realistic. Like if a 1900 scores a Grandmaster norm, like that's not a 1900 player, and I don't think this kind of thing was really happening like maybe 10, 15 years ago. Like
No,
this would
well, so
be
you can get so much stronger online nowadays. No, I mean you can play against good competition, very much non-stop, which I guess you could 10, 15 years ago, but maybe it was just less common before the chess boom.
yeah. I
I
mean,
don't
you
know.
could definitely play, but you've been able to play against pretty strong players online for quite a
Yeah,
long
yeah,
time. I
that's
think
true.
this is more.
At least 20 years, yeah, 25 years easily.
Magnus was doing it in his youth, so yeah.
But yeah, it does. There does seem to be some problems with it. I don't know if this will stop higher rated players. I mean, I spoke to some friends about it, and they who are much
Right.
more active players than me, and they seem to think that these measures don't go far enough.
No, but also, I mean, if the guy is 1900 and plays at grandmaster level, what are you going to do, right? I mean, well, it has to be corrected when he enters
Sorry,
the system.
the girl.
First, so my
Also,
apologies.
then,
Hashtag
yeah,
women in chess.
no, she won't be 1900 forever and so on. I had the feeling, once again, not a mathematician, that the system was just broken since you stopped getting these, whatever it was, 0.8 for beating a player much lower rated, or you only got it once per tournament. Then, especially if an open goes badly, it becomes a free roll for your opponents where you can only get zeros by beating lower rated players or lose a bunch of rating, which is not ideal. But yeah, I'm not sure if they fixed that. To my mind, the system before that looked more accurate, and from a whatever aging 2600 perspective, if the opponents are counted as whatever 1400s or 1000s, doesn't make a lot of difference as long as they don't change this, that you do get 0 points against
I
whatever it
think
was,
that
400
was
points lower rated. No, I mean, like,
yeah, I think that was part of the suggestions as well.
okay, I
There was
think that's
several
a big
things, but I
one
think they're
to
going to
address.
fix that one as well.
Yeah, because if every game I play against a 22-30, let's say, I get 0 points for winning and lose 10 for losing, it's not going to be great for my rating.
Yeah, and I mean that's quite a big chunk of like open tournament
Yeah,
games.
that's pretty much open tournament games. And of course, you're supposed to be a massive favorite and you're supposed to lose rating if you can't prove that. But the +0 and -10 does not reflect, I think, real life open results. Like,
No, but I thought these things. I mean, well, if a 2100 player was just a 2100 players, I mean, it should be possible to calculate that we have so many games historically between a 2100 player and a 2600 player, so we could calculate what is a reasonable expected score. The problem is that some players are there who has well, the rating just doesn't reflect their strength level. I mean, and there's too many of these, and I guess
yeah,
that becomes the big problem, right?
that adds to it. Like, if we say the ratings are established, whatever, as a 26, whatever, I'm 20, I'm supposed to score, I don't know what the right score is, 9.5 out of 10 against a 2100, then you could build a system that way. I guess it's also tricky because I would guess the higher you go, the harder it is to have these massive scores. I could be wrong about that, but I would assume
Yeah.
a 1600 is probably supposed to completely beat up an 1100, while if a 2700 plays a 2300, the level is so high, the 2300 with white, I mean, it's hard to beat them every game.
I agree. I'm just saying that for that we should have enough statistical sort of material to check out what is a reasonable expected score. And as you said, they could be different. I thought that
Yeah, that's fine.
the idea of this K factor is that well, it becomes a bit well, you can sort of compensate for that. But I think the biggest problem is that when players enter with a completely wrong rating. I mean, also at some point, maybe it's less of a problem now. But this idea, for instance, of playing the Chinese league, well, could be interesting. From a rating perspective, it could be completely hopeless. You could see some local players with 2300 who are playing incredibly well. Was my impression. And,
Yeah, I mean there was. I don't know if it was in the. Ah, yeah, it's in the document. The Jeff Sonos is published, and the relationship between ELO rating, predicted score, and actual score has been dropping
mhm,
in like every 3 year period
yeah,
to the point where it's now somewhere like 10% lower, depending
mhm.
on what the rating gap is.
Yeah,
But it's
that's
basically
interesting.
consistently people have been underperforming. So
Mhm.
it does
Yeah.
seem like there is pretty big problem there.
No, but also in a way it's logical if we have a chess boom and many more young players come in. I mean, young players have always been underrated, and old players like us have always been overrated. So of course, it's natural that the old lose some rating to the youth. But if you have an unprecedented boom of young players coming in, also now with the pandemic, you could argue they had 2 years of training, which wasn't really reflected by the rating because they didn't get the chance to play so much. Then of course the system will be exaggerated and feed it, changing what used to be the system that you didn't get the 0.8, whatever it was, for beating someone 400 points low rated anymore. Overpronounced that, I guess, by a lot. So I'm curious how it's going to play out. It doesn't seem like it's been a big factor. The top 100 is still very much the usual guys, and the young talents that are young talents still very much made it up there. But yeah, the system, it looked like there was some fixing to be done, and
It might also.
It's a good sign, right? It doesn't mean it means we're not all getting worse at chess.
Yeah,
well, we are just slowly.
it might also be an impossible problem to actually solve in a clean way. Simply, I mean, all the new players entering. I mean, well, when new players entering, well, we have to estimate their rating, and well, in the old days, you would only get a rating when you were quite a skilled chess player. So you will have some phase first where you improved, and then you will get an ELO rating. Now you basically get an ELO rating immediately, right? I mean, that will make it more random in a way. And well, no, it's rare that I will defend FIDE, but I think it's probably not a problem you can solve easily and elegantly. And it's very interesting that you say that ELO has become apparently much worse at predicting the result. I think maybe 10, 15 years ago, there was sort of computing competition to create the rating system that would best predict a million game database, something like that. And ELO was doing very well, which means that, well, ELO is generally a very robust and good system, but perhaps it's too difficult to cope with this new challenges, and it might just be impossible.
Well, these problems seem the data that in Jeff Sonis's paper starts at 2008 to 2012, and even then the actual score was about 5% lower than the expected score.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Kind of at the biggest gaps. In smaller gaps, it was actually in plus 300, plus 400. It was actually about 10%.
Mm-hmm.
So it does seem to be something that's been going on for 15 years now. So it's definitely accelerating. Like the most recent data, there's a significant gap.
Also, I don't know how it worked for players, but for instance, when I got to 2700 for an extreme brief moment, it was clear that I won all my ratings against lower rated player. When I played someone with a similar rating, I would generally lose that, which at least to me indicated, well, there was something wrong with the rating system, or perhaps there was something wrong with me. But it was clear that, I mean, I was better at performing against certain players than others compared to performance rating. And well, that could still be the true, but it could also be very individual in a way. I don't know exactly.
I think that's quite a normal thing for when people are improving. Like most of the juniors seem to kind of race to 2700 and then hang around there for a bit while they adjust to the new players, because like you don't get to 2700 by taking draws from Magnus. You get there by beating up lower rated players. But then, once you're there, you're going to have to play Magnus and the rest of them, and that's it's a bit of a different game, I guess.
Very much so.
Yeah,
I mean, well,
guys like us, when we were sort of decent players, if you're white against, let's say, 2500, that's a massive rating maker for But if you're playing against 2700s or 27 plus, normally you would lose some rating. The difference in strength, it feels like, is not shown enough by the rating system, but I guess that applies to these effects apply to at every level in some way, and it balances itself out. No,
I think it's maybe a little bit bigger at the top level because like the 2700 guys have their own kind of mini circuit, their kind of bubble where they mostly play against the same tournaments, whereas at the lower levels everybody's more or less in the same open. So like if you're playing in an open, you can, even if you're 2000, if you win enough games, you're going to play against the top players in that open.
There's often the argument that if the slightly weaker players only had a chance to play with the top players, then they would also be at their level. Well, personal experience has always been top players are just so much better. So the few occasions you get to play against them, you see what level they are at. No?
Yeah, it could
Yeah,
be that.
I don't think they're necessarily overrated with that level, but I think there's an experience thing that the younger players, they have to kind of fight through to actually get the experience to play those guys.
I think it's just strength. Also, openings like when you did your rise with the classical Sicilian. I mean, you won't have that much fun playing the classical Sicilian in Norway Chess or Sinkerfield Cup or wherever. So often you also have to change your style completely, which is logical because you don't want to play the Berlin in opens against 2400s or the Petrov. But yeah, you might have to against these guys, and it also requires a different set of skills and prep and so on. I know it's complicated; it's a different game, but yeah, from personal experience, it's not like you can just cash in by drawing higher rated players and win rating that way. Of course, it's been done once in a while, but it's not the typical way.
My general feeling is also that chess players are rational. So players like me and Gusti, we found out that, well, for us to gain rating, that's something we could do. We could beat lower rated players. That's actually possible. While I agree with Jan that the main problem with players higher rated than us is that they're better than us. I don't think that we could have done something very differently and competed against them. They were just better. And, well, this idea that you have to play them to, I don't know. I mean, also, well, let's say compare, well, Geary and someone else. I mean, well, this someone else could be better at beating weaker players than Geary, but Geary would probably make quite better results against the top 10 in the world. I'm not trying to mock Geary, just giving an example. And who is the better player? Well, probably the one who can do better against the top 10, I would say. I mean, when you have to compete for being the best player in the world, that's the guys you're playing at. I don't think that the ability to beat, let's say, people out of the top 20 is a very relevant factor there.
No, if the question is who's a favorite in a match, it will usually be the top 10 guy, even if somebody
Exactly.
else scores
Yes.
much better against
Mhm.
2500s. Like, yeah.
No, but, well, exactly. That's a much better way of framing it. But when they would play, we would always take the one that sort of belongs to this top tier, right? I mean, if it's about winning some kind of event, maybe you would say Gukesh and Abdusattor has just as good chances as Geary, but in a match, you would pick Geary in these pairings, I assume, right? Or
Well, these guys are tough questions because they're
yeah.
pretty much borderline top players who, up to Satorov, almost won Vaikanze,
Hmm.
Gukesh has. So, yeah,
No,
these
but also I
most
took an
scores and just
example
look
to
like
make
they
it.
show they can have plus scores against these guys. But yeah,
Mhm.
like
Oh, these examples is a much closer pairing than taking someone who's well less strong. But you would probably still, I mean, if you could only choose one of them, you would take Geary, I think, right?
I guess I go
I mean, you would probably
with rating, or you could
Yeah,
go with rating performance and
fair
so
enough.
on.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah.
guess
Mhm,
what's Geary 2760, the others
mhm,
are 2740, so there's still a small gap, but it's tiny, really. I
mhm,
mean, like,
mhm.
yeah, but I guess like before this year, you're probably going to pick Gary comfortably against either of them.
yeah,
Yeah,
I know. I'm a
I
big
don't know.
fan of Abdul Satorov. Also, then it comes down to the format and so on and so forth. But yeah,
Yeah,
usually you pick the higher rated player. That's
Yeah.
has
But
to work.
again, that also shows that, I mean, despite there
System
should
still
be
works.
correction in the rating systems, I mean, we really, really believe in the rating system, right? I mean,
Yeah, but especially with top 10 players playing other top 10 players, they won't be as affected by it. I mean, the average rating there in the top 10, I guess, also went down
mhm.
a bit if we look at everybody. They used to be, whatever, 30 points higher rated on average, but it's still the same guys, right? It's not like.
But also, I mean, talking about qualification for the candidates, we think there should be qualification for candidates because everybody should have a chance, and it is a sport. But taking the top 8 rated players against the 8 who qualifies for the candidates, well, you will always pick the top 8, right? You will think that rating is still a bit better indicator who is the best player than qualification events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, if you pick whatever, I'm German national coach. If you pick the national team, you always go by rating and not by who won the German championship or the German masters or whatever. No, you don't take the top 5 finishers in one tournament. You look at the ratings. No, of course, you have some other criteria, activity, youth, rating performance, but
Mhm.
that's always a stronger factor than the results of one tournament, no, as they should be.
yeah. I mean, I would be totally fine with the candidates being chosen by rating, with as long as there's an activity element, and maybe you give bonus points for being more active. You give an extra point for every game you play, like something like that. I would be fine with that.
Well,
That sounds like opening another can of worms,
yeah,
the extra point for every game you play, but
yeah,
Ding
More,
might
more,
come out of
more chess
retirement.
is better. More chess is
yeah.
better. So.
I mean, well, no, sports should qualify by some tournaments. That's the fun of it, in a way, I think. But yeah. Anyway, I think we're just doing a decent job of filling out time in this episode. But yeah.
Mhm. That is the point of podcasting. Anything else happened? Peter, you saw Oppenheimer?
I did,
You
yeah, and
like
I
it?
like. Yeah. I saw it last evening together with my wife, and I thought it was a very interesting, informative movie. The kind of things where you start googling for information afterwards, but mainly, well, I thought it was quite gripping and interesting and well done in a way. So, well, that felt. No, I think Danish Grandmaster Lars Shandov once sort of told me that maybe it was about a concert rather than a movie, but sort of the definition is of a good concert slash movies is that you actually don't think about the opening problems during the movie, and that I didn't. So, and that is
Thanks
no,
for
you can
squeezing
laugh.
that in. I know it's tough for you during your daily 8 hours of golf, but
Yeah,
it's good that
no.
you can relax once in a while.
But I even don't think I had this urge to sort of open my phone and tweet or something like that. No, I actually thought it was gripping from start to finish. So it's very recommendable, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. I also liked it. A small nap in the middle because it's 3 hours, but I mean, I might have missed
Okay.
some conversations, but whenever I was awake, I thought it was excellent.
Yeah. Okay. Fair
What about
enough.
you, Mr. Dodgy?
I haven't seen it yet. I couldn't convince my wife to go see it.
Have you seen
And
Barbie?
no, I also asked her if she wanted to go see Barbie, and her response was, "How long is it?" So I thought if she's going to ask that, then we're not seeing Oppenheimer.
Every movie is 3 freaking hours nowadays. Even Mission Impossible was 3 hours. Like, I mean, or maybe two and a
I'm
half.
still technically curious. What is the cutoff for her? Sort of 140 would be okay for Barbie, but 250, and that's just not happening. Or
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like if it's a nonsense movie, it has to be less than 90 minutes. So
It's not how it works. Good luck finding any movie under
really?
2 hours 20.
I don't
Look for it.
I enjoy nonsense, but like Guardians of the Galaxy being like 2.5 hours is
That was
just
also
insane.
2.5 hours. Yeah.
It's, yeah,
And the
and it
same
was a good
happened like
movie.
in every Marvel movie. Like, yeah, third act, we get the big CGI fight. I mean, it's just too long.
But also,
But
but you,
Oppenheimer was worth it. I mean, he was using the time well, and actually wanna rewatch it. I thought it was excellent.
I mean, there was no moment where you thought, okay, now there's just keeping it going or something like this. I mean, there's
Well, the
new
third
info.
hour has a lot of critics. They say the third hour without spoiling too much, but yeah, the sort of trial, not trial, people felt like that didn't keep up the excitement of the first 2 hours. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, I thought it was all gripping.
Mhm. Okay.
All right, more chess content here. In my 1000 games match against Etienne Gardet, where I'm trying to prove that a grandmaster, even an aging grandmaster, will probably beat a beginner 1,000 times in a row. I've managed to do it 37 times now in another fascinating science experience. Science experiment. So only what? I can't do math. 963 games to go. Doing great. Doing great.
Is he improving or?
Very slowly, but I guess that's also the point of the 1,000 games match. It really depends what openings I play. If I play e4, e5 and sort of allow to get the pieces out with some Italian or Spanish and so on, then we can have a sort of normal game. But if I change anything and create tension early on, then yeah, it's gonna get nasty, which is also understandable. Like, I mean, you get more used to certain structures. We've spent a bunch of games in one d4 where, yeah, I told him to go d5, e6, knight f6, bishop e7, castles, and recapture on d5 with a pawn. And yeah, until that, which sounds trivial to us, but if you're new to chess, it's not
I
so easy
mean,
for it to sink in.
Laurent using our World Championship prep it's okay, but sort of for this video series, maybe it's a bit much. No.
No, but I'm saying as a beginner,
Yeah.
that's if against
Yeah.
because against one d4, like we're not aware of the problems. But most of the games, I think, from beginners, once they know the basics, occupy the center,
Of course.
bring the knights out. It very often goes d4, d5, c4, knight f6, and there were cd5, knight d5, and I've had a bunch of games like that. And you really got to emphasize that you have
I
to
always been curious.
hang
You
on.
think that they are trying to play complicated chess to invent stuff themselves, or they just don't have any grasp for sort of basic principles? It's probably the
I
latter.
think
Yeah.
both. I think
Uh-huh.
there's no grasp, and also they don't believe you initially. Like they have to, figure it out a bit for themselves. But d4, d5, c4, knight f6, I think it's just lack of knowledge. Like they know d4, you're supposed to occupy the center, so you go d5, c4. Then they feel dc4 looks risky, also gives up the center, so you're supposed to develop pieces. Knight f6 useful. I think it comes more natural to beginners than e6 or c6.
But
Which
it's true. E6 and C6 looks like half moves, and we understand that we are covering our center and such. But that's actually maybe not very intuitive in a way, right? So
no, so you gotta learn the lesson and be told after cd5. Now you only
Yeah.
have one pawn in the center.
I think that's
So
one of the most common opening mistakes from like I face it in late chess maybe once a week against
no, d4, d5, c4, knight f6 is incredibly common. Like in every simul, I have it a bunch of times against.
yeah. You take and go knight f3, or you go e4.
No, I take and go knight f3. I'm a purist. Not allowing knight f6, knight c3, e5.
Yeah. No, good.
The first game I went takes an e4 just to show I can take the center, but then when we repeated it, I did go takes knight f3.
So hang on, how is it? Takes, e4, knight f6. You can play e5, knight d5, bishop c4, right? No.
Yeah, then you're back to QGA, but that's not using
Maybe not using EV.
using
Anyway.
your chances optimally.
Perhaps not. No,
I think it's a good idea for content. I think 1,000 game matches. I think this is the future of chess. I think we should have more of these.
Probably I should also play 1,000 games match against Stockfish just so that I get crushed every game as well.
That I would.
There's
actually
no
watch,
way you get through that.
Sounds rough.
You'll give up before he gives up. I guarantee that.
I don't know. I feel like I can break him in a couple of games whenever I want to. Just start blitzing moves, change openings. And,
Yeah, you might. I mean, break it. You will never win. That much we agree on, right?
Oh no, I didn't mean Stockfish. I mean I could break Etienne if I just because so far I'm being nice. I'm playing mainstream openings and I'm explaining. But once I start pre-moving and playing more annoying openings, I think I could take the fun out of it.
But you're actually saying that this would be a popular concept. I mean, also you're not getting enough credit. You are basically the one inventing bandit chess, right?
I don't know. I like to take credit for stuff, but I guess I have to do something at some point to take credit for new stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Being
No,
rude.
I like it. I think it's.
I also think, but I'm not sure. Maybe I shouldn't say on the record. I think I invented this engine bar everybody's using, but I'm not sure about it. So, but yeah, I'll take credit just in case.
Can't hurt.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What else is happening? Do we have questions from the people? Also, we didn't have any topics, but we've been rambling for hours. No, it feels like we've been rambling.
Topics keeps us down. It seems.
Time flies when you're having fun, or without Laurent anyway. No, we didn't have any questions this week. I wasn't sure when we were going to record because the busy schedules everyone has.
Incredibly busy.
People can just ask random questions. I've made a drawing correspondent chess. Should that interest anybody?
I won a blitz tournament in Thailand, a rated blitz tournament. I played terribly.
Rated? Wow.
Yeah, I'm sure I lost like 50 rating points or whatever you can lose, but I scored 7.5 out of 9 in great fashion. I won that, and I won a simul against the same guys, but there I scored 19.5 out of 20. So I think simul is just better than blitz.
Okay. I mean, had Laurent been here, he would have asked how much money did you win in this blitz tournament?
1,000 baht in drinks. That's, I don't know, 30 euros, I guess.
It's pretty good.
And they gave me a mug, Marimeko mug. Those are expensive, so that's probably another 30 euros. Yeah. Time well spent.
It's good that you said you won the simul, because like losing a simul can be pretty depressing.
Yeah, that's a bit embarrassing. They might question your credentials. But
That's happened,
no,
right?
I scored much more points against this, more or less the same players in the simul than the blitz, so that doesn't speak well for my 3+2 blitz skills. Yeah, that's been my chess activity.
Not bad.
Rolling. But sorry, you drew a correspondence game.
I drew a correspondence games, and well, just to give an idea of the excitement level, I was a bit upset that he offered a draw because he had a king and 2 pawns, and I had a king and a knight. I was kind of
Oh.
hoping that we could play down to bare kings, but I thought also when I have the knight, he offers a draw. It's a bit rude to refuse, right? So
Yeah.
I reluctantly took the draw, but that's the excitement level there. But I like correspondence. It's a nice social experience. I mean, you make the move that Stockfist suggests, and then you chat a bit on the side and such. It's very.
It's the
Nice.
definition of a social activity.
It
Correspondence.
is, yeah. No, it's not. It's true.
Yep, one message every 3 days and never seeing your opponent's face. It's...
No. These, yeah, fair enough.
Sounds like my I don't know. I don't have a Tinder profile, but
Okay.
I haven't played any chess. I'm waiting for the ratings to be adjusted so that I can take advantage, hopefully, and I don't know, win some points maybe.
Okay, guys, enough rambling. Thank you so much for listening to this week's emergency, but not really emergency, episode of the Chicken Chess Club podcast. We will continue working very hard on bringing you content every 2 till 6 weeks whenever schedules match, which is never. Maybe we'll also push our exciting secret YouTube project, which, yeah, will stay exciting and secret for a while. Thank you so much for listening. Follow us on what's called now X. Follow us on X.
No, it's Twitter. Don't
Still
ever
Twitter?
say that. Don't ever say that letter.
Still
Twitter.
X. Okay.
Yeah.
Follow us on Twitter. I don't know what the account is, but I'm sure we have one. And everywhere else, subscribe to stuff and so on and so forth. Next week, there will be a 27-minute feeder segment by Peter and Mr. Dodgy. Maybe you can finally do your solo podcast when Laurent keeps crashing the World Cup after he beat Giri and Abdusatorov, moving on to play Magnus. I don't think he will have time to talk to us.
No, they will, but
Who knows? Hopefully.
we'll see. Best of luck, Laurent. Keep in there. Yeah.
Good luck, Laurent. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.